Hey YouTube, today is just some videos of mostly agricultural stuff with some plantings. As you can see, this is a very interesting contorted willow I bought. Bought this at Lowe's. Terrible time to be transplanting trees because it's definitely way too hot and the poor things are just suffering because they're leftovers that have been on the Lowe's rack, but that's a pretty cool contorted willow, so I'm going to plant that pretty soon. Today I planted this Yoshino cherry, which, I don't know if you've ever seen cherry festivals in bloom, but they have a gorgeous flower. It's what they do in Washington, D.C. and some of the Japanese festivals that they have for cherry blossoms in the spring. So looking forward to, that one surviving and having cool blossoms. This I planted last fall, which was another super special tree, but it's super special meaning the price I paid, not that it's anything extravagant. It's just a flowering cherry. But I did today put on the mulch around the base because I didn't have any last fall, but the tree seems to be doing fine. And I added a trunk cage to protect deer should they get in through the electric fence from rubbing on it. Over here in the distance, you can see the two red maples that were purchased again on clearance. This was 3 years ago now for $10 a piece. A tree of similar size today, if you go to the nursery, is probably about $110 around here, which I think is highway robbery. But at any rate, they're doing quite well. They were kind of ill when I got them. They had some fungal infection, and needless to say, I sprayed some fungal killer on them, gave them some good fertilizer, a lot of water, and just sort of keep an eye on them. I'm trying to train this one to grow a little more straight, ergo the rope. But they're coming along nice. Another couple of years, and I'll probably transplant them to their more permanent homes. Over here, this next nearest tree, there was an Asian pear that was planted right here last year that died. I happened to get this pear on sale. This is a Kiefer pear, I believe. And I just planted it in the same spot that the previous pear was that died. Did the mulch, added the cage. You can see this. This one actually has a fruitlet on it up there. You can see it kind of hiding up there. I don't know, maybe you can. Maybe you can't. There it is in the center of the frame. I should actually take it off to help it focus on roots, but it's pretty high up on the tree and there's only one, so I'll just leave it. And yeah, I guess while I'm over here, I'll show an update on some of the other stuff. This is a, I believe these are Macallan apples, a pair of them that I bought 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. Again, at Lowe's at the end of the season when they were drastically on sale for like $5, $10 a piece, which is way cheaper than you can even buy a bare root tree and have it shipped. It's doing quite well. They were very sickly when I got them, but through a couple years of pruning and watering and mulching, and I know it looks terrible around the base, but it's because I have it netted to keep the deer out before I had the electric fence up, but this netting's about to go, and I'll replace it with a regular steel cage or welded wire cage like I had on the other trees I just showed you, which will tidy this place back up. Same thing here. This little apple tree is doing well. It's got some more upright form than it had when I first bought it. It was very, very wilty and weak, very wispy tree. You can still see there's, a branch or two that are very kind of droopy. The orange spots, as I've explained in other videos, that's cedar apple rust, because this area is surrounded by cedar trees and there's not much I can do about it because I took about 90% of the cedar trees out of this property, but it sort of works anywhere within like a quarter of a mile, and there's just no saving that because there's cedar trees everywhere. This is a crab apple that was here on the property that I found originally. I've trimmed it up and I keep trying to get the tree to be more balanced in shape because the side to the right, which is where I'm in frame right now, lags the side that's on the left because the side on the left grew far out into the sunshine because of the shade of a bunch of trees that used to be right here that all died and got choked out by vines. These several 100-year-old hardwoods that are there are sort of just beating on them. This tree that's super leany and contorted, that's actually some kind of wild, pear. Probably it was originally a European cultivar pear variety that somebody fed to a horse that then defecated on the property and then became, this tree. I tried doing some grafts earlier this year, but they did not take, unfortunately. Tried to graft it over to an Asian pear variety, and as you can see, fortunately the grafts didn't make it. They're good, tight joints. It was my first time at trying to graft on this, so I'll give it another shot in the spring next year. So Yeah, it's unfortunate, but this will be just another opportunity. You can see that it's pushing new sprouts below the graft units or graft joint, so I'll just top them off and try again next year. And then if the grafts take with, I'll probably try the Asian pear variety again and the new Kiefer variety that I have, just because it'd be much better than the fruit that's on this tree. It produces a lot of really tiny scabby fruit, unfortunately. That tree right there in a cage, that's a flowering pear. Bradford, just typical flowering pear. A lot of people don't like them, a lot of people love them. It's real pretty when it blooms, but otherwise, it doesn't do much in terms of it doesn't fruit, things like that, but it makes a good pollinator. So this is another candidate for later this summer. That deer netting will go away and it'll get replaced by a welded wire cage. Panning over here, this is a peach tree, which since I've caged it and kept the deer out, it's doing quite well. It's actually, put on some good vigorous growth, as peaches are known to do. I didn't get to see that last year because the deer would eat it faster than the tree could grow, but that's pretty good. There's got to be 8 inches of new growth on that tree already, and it's only halfway through the season. This is another wonderful apple tree I got discounted at the end of the season last year from Lowe's or Home Depot. It looks a little worse for wear, but it's actually doing okay, I think. It needs to be sprayed for some insects and some other things, which I need to do soon. But as you can see, the deer here mauled the side of this cage. That's why it's all warped and bent up. I don't know if you can see this, but it's pretty wrecked. That's because the deer pounded on it. They stood up on their hind legs and just tried to get into it anyway. Moving along, where this wood pile is going, I've got plans for this area, but I'll show that in a future video once it's done. Over here, blackberries and blueberries, 2 different kinds of blackberries, 2 different kinds of blueberries, but I need to get a raised bed in to plant these because they just won't do in this soil. It's not quite acidic enough, I think, and the soil is just too compacted here. It needs something a little softer. Over here, recently I found some volunteer berries coming up. They're either a type of raspberry or blackberry. I can't quite tell, but I've got a few of them. There was several on the property when I moved in, but unfortunately they're super thorny and don't produce exceptional tasting fruit, so I have pretty much let them go. Out here, you can see big addition to the orchard was the fact that I've made cages for every single one of these, and thanks to everybody who helped, because I had lots of help along the way. Caged every single one. I've taken inventory of the number I've lost. I think dead to date I've lost, I think, five or six apple trees. And anyway, that's what's going on down there at the far end of the orchard. You probably can't see, but the stone fruit orchard is down there. Those have all been caged individually. I lost 2 of the stone fruit, or maybe 3. I think it's 3. But I've got some replacements here I just need to put in the ground. They're currently in pots, thriving away. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. All right, thanks for watching.